Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's FileMaker webinar. My name is Mike Crook. I'm the marketing manager here for FileMaker in the UK. I have with me Kieran Saunders, our FileMaker product specialist.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So today's session is our second in a series of 6, built around the FileMaker training series. This one's all about navigating. Before we get started, I'd just like to say if you have any questions during the course of the session, feel free to ask them using the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll do our best to address as many of those as we can towards the end. We'll also be running a few polls throughout the webinar. They give us some great feedback, so please do interact with those. You'll hear more from me towards the end when we get to those questions, but that's all from me for now, so over to Kieran to get started.
Thanks, Mike, and hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So let's have a look at the agenda for today. So we're going to be looking at how to navigate around FileMaker using layouts and the records. We're going to look at the different ways that you can view data in FileMaker. We'll then be looking, taking a break, doing a few polls on that section, and then coming back and doing some finding on your data, how to do the finds, how to find the relevant business information, and including the operators that go with them, and then how to sort. So let's take a look. So the first thing I'd recommend you have a look at is our getting started files. They would have been dropped into your documents folder, and they're the first thing that opens the first time you install a copy of FileMaker. So let's open that up and have a look at it. So let's go over to the records and fields. So there's a wonderful file that's actually built in FileMaker, but then helps to sort of explain some of the features of FileMaker. So let's just look at records and fields. You can see that we can go into here. We can see that it's explaining that one record being one information about one thing, containing lots of different fields containing that information, the information that you want to record about that object or business intelligence. You can see we can click on new record. It's taking us through it quite nicely. And we can add the data as we go in, and it's explaining the difference between the fields, difference between numbers and text, and drop-down lists, using value lists to select data, as well as dates and the pop-up calendars that come with them. So it's nice to go through this sort of example. The one we'd like to look at very quickly is viewing data. So there's several different ways of viewing data within FileMaker, and of course, FileMaker's, if you think of FileMaker as holding sort of is in 3 sections. You've got the forms, the layouts, the way you view the data. We'll be talking about that in a second. You've also got the middle layer, which is your we call it scripting, but it's your business logic. You attach scripts to buttons in order to complete some kind of task and automate those tasks and get things done, faster and more accurately. So there's that layer, the sort of middle layer where you're doing the coding, if you like. At the bottom layer, you've got your database where everything is held within tables and fields. So let's have a look at the sort of the top layer, the presentation layer, the forms. Let's quickly explain that. So you can see here that we've got the idea of different layouts. So you can build as many forms as you would like. So here's a view sort of looking at several of those different fields. We've even got one that's built to be able to help you print off labels for your assets in this case. But you've also got the ability within FileMaker, when you've got a spreadsheet, of course, you're only looking at what we call table view. And you wouldn't normally see the pictures either, but you're just seeing the data in its raw form. There's no formatting on that data normally, and you're just seeing the data in its normal form. In FileMaker, every single form you can choose to view it within form view, which is one record at a time. You can go through them and view them that way, or clicking on the middle button here, you can see that we go into list view, and that will display the list of all the records that you've done a find on the found set. In this case, we're viewing all of the records, so we're seeing all of them. So those are the three different views. So I'll just go over them quickly again. So we've got viewing as a form, so that's one record at a time. We've got list view, which is very useful for reporting and for printing out lists of things. And we can see table view, which gives you just the data sort of unformatted, so you can just see what it looks like without any formatting getting in the way. Usually used just for the developer, just for you. You don't usually present this to the users. It's just a nice view for you to see. So let's have a look at how you navigate around these layouts. And to do that, I'm just going to come out of the Getting Started file, and I'm going to go and bring up a file that I've already got on my server. So I can show you both the desktop view and the iPad as well. So this is FileMaker Pro. This is viewing it on my server. You can tell that normally because the server name is in brackets. If you see a name of the file and then you've got brackets around it, that's usually because it's hosted on a FileMaker server, either in your company or elsewhere in a data center. So this is the contacts starter solution, and we've just got some dummy data in here. So we see a list of contacts. We can view them by company, and a bit of sort of almost reporting going on this view. But you can also then click through to a form detailed view of that contact. You can see lots of information about that person, including their maps and phone numbers and so on. So let's look at how you sort of scroll through these records. So on the form view, you can scroll through using the navigation buttons top left, go one by one, or if you put your finger along if you've got a scrolly wheel, if you've got an Apple Magic Mouse, you're just putting your finger along the top there, you can see that you can scroll through very rapidly through those objects. You can go back to show all of these icons here change between the modes that we went into more detail in the last webinar. So if you were going into a layout mode, you'd see the icons change. But within browse mode, this is how you'd normally navigate through the record. Of course, as we're doing within this view here, this line at the top here has a very simple navigation script, a go to a layout and then a go to a record, so you can navigate also via scripting. So let's just bring over my iPad view here. I'll just make that a bit smaller. So this is exactly the same solution here, but it's on my iPad. It's on FileMaker Go. And one of the things I just wanted to point out, and it's hard to sort of see, but I'm just using 2 fingers and I'm swiping left and right on the iPad screen. And you can see that you can also navigate within FileMaker Go using 2 fingers as well, so it becomes a much more natural operation on that device. Okay, so let's go in a bit more about, so that was a bit of navigating around. So let's look at the modes a bit more in detail. So I touched on them briefly. We're in browse mode, and it's easier if I bring up this menu here to talk about it. So we're in browse mode. That's what you would use. That's what you would give to your users to, as you can sort of see the data, interact with it, change the data, navigate around the data, and so on. The other views, of course, are find mode, so you can get into it via the view menu there, or you can get into it from the button on the taskbar here as well. Normally, we've done some trickery here where we're hiding a lot of the unrelevant fields. It's the same layout, but we're hiding those fields in find mode, therefore sort of focusing the user on what they need to find. But usually, without that sort of extra bit of work, the layout would look exactly the same. So the users would know how to find. They've been entering data all day in this layout. They'll know how to find a person as well just by typing in that data and finding what they need to do. So very, very quick to go into find mode and to do a find to find Rankin Studios in this case. You can see that we at the top here, that found set has changed. So we found 7 companies with that name out of our total database of 58. Okay, so that's browse and find. That's mainly what your user is going to be using. The other one that's very useful is preview mode. So that's basically what it's going to look like when it's printed. So that's worth considering, worth using when you are going to print, or you want your users to go to preview mode before they print, so they can just double check before they waste a load of paper printing out a big huge report. One thing I wanted to point out actually in that preview mode, I mean, all of these operations are available via a script, so you can put that on a button somewhere, but they could appear in the taskbar here, so you can see you can save out records as Excel, you can save this as a PDF or a multi-page PDF. A lot of people are actually printing their catalogs from their FileMaker databases instead of having to go to a typesetter. As long as that data is pretty structured and pretty repeatable, you can create a pretty nice PDF catalog. And of course, printing and page setup is all there for you to go into. So that was most of the views. The last one that I did just go into was a layout mode. So that's your designer mode. So this is where you have tools in here to add the buttons that I've been talking about. So you can add a button on the top here maybe. And but as I was saying, one of the common ones is a go to layout, go to a form script step. So you could choose and create a nice little navigation button, let's say. And then start typing in the top here, go to layout, whatever it may be. So you can start creating your own little buttons with scripts that automate your system. So this is part of layout mode. So I'll just delete that off. So we can write text on our forms, of course. Even simple lines. Amazing how powerful having some of these objects are in creating nice reports. Having some lines and shapes that you can build and color. All of these, of course, within the inspector window, and I'll just bring that up manually. It's on the top right here. Of course, you can change the styles of all of these objects, or graphically go in and actually change them to whatever appearance you would like. But you've got all of these little tools to create, like I say, the best looking forms that you could. I went into buttons. One of the new features in 14 is a button bar, so it gives you ability, instead of just one button, you can have multiple buttons and create as many as you'd like there. They automatically rescale, and you can also put icons on there, which is great. You can choose different icons for your navigation or for your button scripts. So very, very quick to build up a nice little button navigation to give your users that power, that automation that we're talking about. Okay, so that was the three modes, four modes, sorry. So just to go over them again. So browse mode is what your users will mainly use. You'll use FileMaker security to lock them out of the other modes that you don't want them to go into. They'll be using browsing the data. They'd also be going into find mode to find that data. You, as a developer, will be going into layout mode to create new layouts and to create those beautiful layouts and those scripts and so on that you need to go into. And preview mode is what it will look like when you want to print it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So the last thing I want to just go into is creating and deleting records very quickly. So within, if I just exit preview mode, so if I'm in browse mode, I can very quickly hit the new record button or Command N to create a new record. So I can start typing in some new data into my system very easily, and to sort of save that data. There's no real idea of saving within a database, but there's something called commit, which is almost the same. As you can sort of understand that this isn't a local file, this is up on the server there, and you may have 50 people all using this system at the same time. So you've got to have some way of controlling that. Well, luckily FileMaker takes all that sort of complexity away from you, but creating records, if you're in the field and you're still modifying, so I'm still typing away, it will be unsaved. As soon as you either click like I am into some white space over there, or tab out, or go to another layout, click a button that takes me away, but basically any way that takes me out of that record will make it unlocked, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, but then we'll then save that data, if you like, commit that data to the database up on the server, up on the file. So that's how you would create records and get some locking there, but I'll just obviously deleting a record is as simple as clicking the delete record up here, and again there is no sort of undo. There's lots of people using this system, so there's no real idea of undoing a record. Once it's deleted, it's deleted. So of course FileMaker security and other and having backups on the server become extremely important to make sure that you're not going to lose any data that you didn't want to. Okay, so that's creating and deleting. So just let's find let's pick on Philip, let's say. So if I just bring over to my iPad at the same time, or maybe we'll choose Leslie. She's got a picture. So I'm just going to find Leslie on both. There we go. So we've got the same record up. Now, if I'm on my iPad and I just decide that actually maybe Leslie is changing her surname, and I'm still within that record, I haven't come out. If I want to go in and try and change this record on the desktop, so another user in effect, we get a record locking message. We're just saying that it gives us the username. So actually, Kieran Saunders' iPad is modifying this record. You can't use it. You could send a message and say, please, can you stop changing this record, or just wait for them to finish. And when they do, you can go in. So I'll just commit that on the iPad there. So again, clicking into some white space. And we can see that that record will change very soon once I go back to do a find and show that again. That should be brought up again. But so you don't have to worry about changing that data. The record locking will take care of itself. Okay, well, let's just quickly go to the polls, and let's just go over some of those points. So hopefully you should have the quick poll window appearing. So if you could just select one of the following. If you want to view your database like a spreadsheet, which view should you be using? Okay, I'll just close that poll and share those results. So most of you have got that, yeah. Table view would be the one you would need to see it more like a spreadsheet. Form view and list view, you could see it like a spreadsheet and list view. You're not totally wrong there. You can sort of see it sort of like a spreadsheet, because you could make the body extremely small and put a series of fields in there, and you would sort of see them like a spreadsheet. But the one we were really thinking about, I think, was table view. So just to go over those again, table view, unformatted data, in just sort of in a spreadsheet type look. A form view is one record at one time, so one object, one thing at one time. List view is a series of all those objects that you've done a find on. Usually, you wouldn't normally show your whole database and thousands of records. So you'd normally have done a find to list those particular records, to choose one from them maybe. And there's no such thing as free view. Okay, so when you're browsing records in FileMaker Go, how can you move to the next record? Okay, thank you for that. Just share those results. Yeah, absolutely. There is actually, even though the solution I was showing, most of the buttons, the FileMaker Go buttons, were hidden, there is a next and previous buttons within the app, but the easiest one to do is just use a two-finger swiping motion to get to the next record. So which mode, and we're talking about the layout browse modes, would you use to create a new record? Hopefully an easy one, that one. Okay, I'm just going to close that and share the results. So it's browse mode. So layout mode, for those of you who chose that, it's a layout mode is where you're doing the designing, where you're designing the forms, not the records. The records being the data that you're collecting. So which of the following actions will save or commit a record? Okay, thank you for that. I'll share the result. Yeah, all of the above. So changing layouts, modes, records, or tapping outside of all of the fields, so you come out of all of the fields, will commit that record, will save it up to the server. So I didn't explicitly say this, but I did show it. So how many users can modify one record at one time? So not, of course, the whole database, that would make it unusable. You've got 50 people using the database. Of course, they can be in different forms using the data. But when it comes to actually modifying data, records, how many can be modified at once? Lovely, I'll just share that result. Absolutely, yeah, just one as I showed. Okay, fantastic. Right, so let's just take the iPad out of the way there. So let's go into finds, and let's have a go at taking you through that. So the first one's almost the easiest one, so you don't even have to go into find mode. So I've got my contact database here. I can find, let's have a look at just all of the companies. So let's say Spin7, I want to find all of the people that work at Spin7. I can just right click on the field in question, and I get a couple of finding options down the bottom here. Finding the matching records, constrain or extend. So I can find the matching records, and then you can see I've got 10 records of all the people that are at Spin7, which is great. So very easy. It's a very logical way. It's the way we sort of think. You know, I've found this one person, right? I want to find all those people, all those people with the same job title, and so on. And it's very quick and easy to just do a right click and expand, constrain or extend that found set after you've done a find. Okay, so that's just contextual shortcuts, very quick. The other ones then are the ands and the ors. So sometimes it's very useful, of course, to find all of the people within the company, and you want to do sometimes you want to do an and sometimes you want to do an or. So let's have a look at doing an and or then. So an and's the easiest one, and let's say that you want to find all of the people that are artists in a particular studio, but they're in both. So let's go into find mode. So start typing. FileMaker has sort of given me the type ahead, which is nice as well. So all of the people in Rankin that are artists, and just by sort of typing that find criteria into multiple fields will give you the and. So that's this studio and artists. Performing that find, you'll see that we found 4 people that are at both, but only at both. So if we go through, we shouldn't find anyone but an artist or works at those studios. So maybe you want to find people that work at the studio, that either work at the studio or are artists. So everybody that's an artist and everyone that works at that studio. So to do that, we go to find mode, and you enter your first criteria, so the studio, and then you have to add a new request. and then type in a new request somewhere. So we can look through these find requests by going up to the top left here. We can go through the requests just to make sure that we're happy. So everyone in the studio or is an artist. We'll come on to this later as well, including or omitting, and the operations are also ways that you can sort of further narrow down onto your finds. But clicking the find records again, you can see that we found, hopefully you would find more. We've now found 7 instead of 4, and we found a few more people that were using that or criteria. Okay, so you can see that some people aren't artists, but they do work at the studio now. Okay, so let's looking at expanding a found set. So let's perform a find for contacts in the friends group and then expand it to include contacts in the personal group. So let's go in and do that. Oh, by the way, just in case I forget, if you ever on a FileMaker, you see this little arrow next to an icon, means that there's a sort of sub-menu underneath, and by holding your mouse button down and clicking and holding it down, you'll find that the sub-menu comes up. So you can see that we've actually got some of these recent finds. This is contextually, this is for a user. So somebody on their own machine with FileMaker Pro will see their own recent finds. It won't be a sort of everyone in the whole company, but then you'll be able to actually go in and do a find again. And actually use that to save that. You can save the current find and edit them and so on, so that you give it a name, and then you can come back and use that saved find whenever you'd like. It sort of saves it. These ones drop off the list as you use them. So that's quite useful, bit of training for the users as well. Okay, so let's go in and expand that found set. So let's enter find mode and enter friend in the group field. Great. And then we'll actually perform that find. So we found 13 friends, which isn't too bad. And then what we want to do is just go back to find mode. Yeah, do it and go into the find mode again, sorry. And then enter personal. For that find, we can see if we've got 13. What you could actually then do is you could use the contextual menus. You could right click and constrain or extend by different fields in there. So maybe if we constrain it by assistants, we can see that in the personal group, we've only got 2 people that are also assistants. So that's another way of expanding and constraining those fields. Okay, so another quite helpful thing or useful thing to know is to find empty fields. So let's go into find mode again, and we want to find everyone that hasn't got a mobile phone. So let's go in and go into the mobile field, and just by entering the equals symbol, they're also should be up in the operators menu as well. So you'll find lots of these operators up here. I'll go through them in a minute. So and perform that find there, we can find that 36 people we haven't actually got their mobile number in there. So that's quite a useful thing to do, to find sort of empty fields. So we go back into find mode, and I'll talk about that contextual. That in operators menu. So you can see that actually the equal symbol is to match the whole word. So of course you could use that for a lot of other uses, but because there's nothing after that operator, it's matching nothing. So it's finding all of the empty fields. So that's quite a useful one. So the other one to put in there is to find when it's non-empty. So we could go and put the asterisk symbol in there and perform a find, and hopefully we should find, so it's 22, so the other end is where that mobile field is not empty. So again, that's quite useful to find as well. Okay, other ways of using the asterisks is to search for names starting with a letter. So if we go into, just to give you an example, use the asterisk key and search for everyone that's starting with the letter M. Oh, sorry, it contains the letter M. We can see that we've got that there. You can see that Sam comes up. But if we then put asterisks around it, we can see that we're only finding sort of names that have M somewhere within that name. Okay, what else can we do? So finding a range of dates in a range of data is quite a useful one. So let's just look through some of this records. Let me just do a find in here where I've got or maybe I'll have to build them. So if I just go back to Leslie, if we just give some people a date of birth, and maybe not a date of birth, but just some days here, otherwise I'll have to go all the way back to 1977 or so. So if we just put a few in there that are 2015 maybe, we can go into find mode and we can put dates in between a ... or using higher or lower. So let's say, let's just put in there 2014. We can see that it's recognizing that we're after the year here, and we're only finding people's with birthdays. Very, very young. She looks quite good for a baby, but you get the idea. So we're finding on a date range, we can either find greater or less than, and you can also find on a range. So if we just go into the operators, we can put two date ranges in there and then have a ... It's a range of numbers or dates, but usually are dates. So you can find between two dates and find the records in there, as well as using the operators, of course, less than or greater or equal or so on, or even today's date, which is quite a useful one as well. Okay, so the other thing that's quite useful to know when you're doing finding and finding is the sorting when you're coming back to it. So the sort order in FileMaker normally is how people have entered that data. So it's as the records are being entered, that's the unsorted order, if you like. But of course, once you're doing reporting and labels and so on, the sort order becomes quite important. So you could just click up here and manually put the fields that you want to order in. So it's first name, last name and group and so on. And if we go into the list view here, it's being used quite a lot. So we can see listing on job title. We can see that that's changing the sort of list within here. And if I just go to show all, that'll be a bit better. We can see that we can do finds and sorting quite nicely within these within these lists. But that's how you would go up and change them up at the sorter. Like I say, you can also do that via scripting as well. Most of what you can do here, we can do via scripting, the finding as well. So the last one I've failed to go into is this little search window at the top here within the status toolbar up here. And this is called Quick Find. And this will find LES, let's say, it's found Leslie nicely, but we'll search through every field on the layout, including the notes field if you have one, a big notes field, and we'll search through all of the fields in there. So it's just called Quick Find. Again, you can use it scriptable. You can script and capture that data and use it in some way. I've even seen it used to add records in, strangely, into FileMaker, so you can capture the data that's being put into here and use it in whichever way you want through scripts. But that's called Quick Find. That's sort of turned on by automatically. Go into layout mode. You can see that these icons here, these little green magnifying glasses, are just to tell you that in Quick Find, these fields will be quite fast. They're green, they're okay, they're all good. Ones that are in something called a portal related data, so data that isn't against this record, but maybe a few hops away, maybe showing up as amber. So that will just tell you what that's done. You can also go into the layout setup and enable or disable quick find as well for the whole layout, so you can turn it off if you just don't want people to do that. It's very slow, the records are quite slow and you just don't want them to do it, so you have some control over that as well. Okay, if you don't mind, we'll just go back to the polls, and let's see if we can make sure that we've covered all of the knowledge that I wanted to give to you. So which are the ways to perform AND search in FileMaker? And that second line, if it's coming up, it's cut it off for me, but type criteria into multiple fields in a single search request. Okay, thank you. I'll just share those results. And that's the one, yes, B. So typing criteria into multiple fields just within find mode, go into find mode and type in those multiple requests. That'd be an AND. How can you find all records with an empty field? Yeah, fantastic. I think everyone got that. Yeah, it's of course using the equal sign. Okay, so what operators allow finding of ranges of dates, times, and numbers? Lovely. Yeah, absolutely. The top three. So you can find a data that is great or less or is within a range. Okay, and in which order do records show if they are not sorted, if they're in an unsorted view? Fantastic. Yes, absolutely. In the order they were created as they were entered into FileMaker. Great. Okay, well, thank you for that. So just quickly with this, just so you know that one of the things I forgot to mention right at the beginning is that even though I was demonstrating all of this on my Mac, FileMaker is cross-platform, so of course you could and should be following along on your Windows machine if you so wish. And we've been following these webinars are following the FileMaker series Basic, which is a free download. You can go to our website and find it very quickly in the learning section. And we're following along the chapters in that. But so again, if you want some of the files used or you want some of the resources, that's where you'll find them, and some further reading. But if you're finding this all far too easy and you know all of this already, I'd recommend you have a look at the FileMaker Series Advanced book. It is a slight extra purchase. It's around £12 on our web store. But don't be scared by the word advanced. It's a really, really great resource. It comes with it's a PDF. If you download it, it comes with a PDF, actual physical FileMaker files that you can play around with videos of top professional developers around the world that are teaching you how to use some of these techniques. There's a great one on reporting and charting, which sort of ties into this whole navigation and finding webinar that I'd really recommend you have a go through the exercises and learn how to build up some simple reports and so on. So yeah, that's one recommendation I've got. The other is if you're on the other end, maybe you're totally new to this whole database development thing. We set up in the last few months a FileMaker Success program on our forums to really help people to feel that they're not loose in a bigger forum. It's a separate sort of not closed exactly, but it's for people new to the system and to try and help them succeed with building their first solution. So that you can join up very quickly. There's got some training in there, some quick start training on some simple things to do, and everyone in that group is in your position. They're all new, so no question is stupid. And the moderators there are there to help you, and they monitor it quite closely. I was looking through it the other day, and actually there's some really nice replies to some of the questions and some really useful sort of help on what you're trying to achieve. So please go and have a look at the FileMaker Success program. And another resource that we work very hard to create a great event day that's at the UTC Reading, a brand new technical college, fantastic facilities. They've got classrooms with computers in there, so we can go in there, take you a whole day of training for £69, get you up to speed. It really is very for people new to the system. It's getting Excel into FileMaker, looking at planning the system, which is James there that's actually in the picture does a brilliant planning session on how to really think about what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to improve your business rather than just diving in straight and building a database. It's really the planning is all important. I normally take people through the relationships part, so how to connect those bits of data that you want to manage, off to doing, like I said, Excel in, getting that Excel data in, or other spreadsheets exist, and then going and doing some cool stuff, doing some mapping and barcoding and other cool stuff in FileMaker and getting them onto an iPad. So it's a great day. So please have a look at that and sign up to come along and see us. Our next webinar is in a couple of weeks, 31st of July, and we'll be looking at design. So design is a principle, in this case, a methodology. So we'll be looking at how you create great forms, the theory around it, not actually the practicalities necessarily in this one, but just the sort of theory, if you like, and something to maybe help you go off and maybe do some further learning on design. But so that's one of my favorite ones, so I look forward to seeing you there. I would have been at coming back from Las Vegas, our developers conference. I'll be doing my own learning. I go over there and of course meet customers, but it's a great resource for us. A whole week of all of the top developers in the world meeting together for a week, and so I'm going to be doing my own learning next week. So I look forward to seeing you guys back at the end of the month.